obviously we have to engage the mind, the human mind, to come up with a judgment. The Course is all about teaching us to look through our spiritual eyes. Love. Agape love. Anything other than seeing this moment through unconditionally loving eyes, i.e. non-judgment, the Course would say is fear. So that being said, if you look at something through a judgmental mind, you could look at the positive in this world. If that positive is viewed from a judgmental mind, the Course would throw that into the category of fear. Sounds kind of contradictory sometimes. How can good and positive be coming from fear?
Can you give an example of that?
Only if it's a judgment, though.
Only if it's a judgment. Now, this is no different than what we talked about when I talked about the Bhagavad Gita.
Can you give an example of that? You're talking about looking at something good with judgment.
Well, in other words,
if you decide it's good or bad,
if you decide
it's good or positive, that's still judgment.
it's still based upon a dualistic view.
Right.
Okay?
Which means you're figuring the dualistic, figuring there's an opposite of that.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
so therefore,
And opposites is the key here. Okay? Opposites is the key. We're going to get into talking about what this is about. Tonight we're going to talk about the introduction, then we're going to get into clarification of terms, is what we just discussed. And at the very, very beginning of the book, we're going to talk about the very, very beginning, the introduction. And it says this. This is, I guess, page 1. Page 1. Introduction on page 1, right after the table of contents. Okay? It says, this is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time that you take it is voluntary. Okay, so we all have a choice as to when you're going to experience this. That's what it's saying. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. Okay, what does that mean? It means we have free will. We have free will to make a choice. Once I made the choice, the details in the form outside, the details of my life, are not necessarily in my charge. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So in other words, we say, okay, I'm choosing to live my life for God. Why are these things still occurring in my life this way? How come things are happening this way when I'm choosing to live my life for God? Okay. So the Course is saying, you can establish, the free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at any given time. In other words, we're going to have experiences, we're going to have lessons, so to speak. We're going to have that which is going to build the foundation to move us to the state of the atonement. Okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that would be beyond what can be taught. Okay, so again, it's not going to teach you the meaning of love. How could it teach you the meaning of love? It can't. Love can't be taught. Love can be experienced. Agape love. Okay? Agape love cannot be defined, but it can be experienced. This is what this is all about. This is about an experiential thing. This is not about an intellectual thing.
because love is God, God is love. It's like trying to understand all of God.
Yes, exactly. It can't be done. You can't intellectualize it. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Okay, so what is it basically saying it's going to do? It's going to help you look at everything that is standing in your way of being. Everything that you have embraced in your mind and adopt it as being true and real and valid, which is erroneous, it's going to help you remove that. That's what the Course is about. The opposite of love is fear. Okay, so here we have love. This is God. This is total awareness. This is all there is. Okay, its opposite is fear. False evidence appearing real. But what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Is there an opposite to God? Obviously not. It doesn't exist. Now it goes on to explain it a little further. The Course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. God, love, the perfected state. Can you threaten that? Can you threaten God? Can you do anything to stop God from being perfect in any way? No. Nor can you stop any spiritual being from being perfected in any way. Can't be done. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. So, all of our fears, this is saying all of your fears, not this fear or that fear. False evidence appearing real. All false evidence appearing real doesn't truly exist. Herein lies the peace of God. When I read that, I said, okay, close the book, we're done. You don't need any more. We got it. How simple, right? That's the premise behind the Course. The Course is designed to help you reevaluate every single thing in this world, everything you experience, every thought you have, and help readjust the mind to where you see the reality of the moment, the truth in the moment, i.e. a miracle. You had a miracle. Take that miracle and build on it, have two miracles. Take that miracle and build on it, you may have 5 minutes of being within the awakened state. Take those 5 minutes and build on them, you have a whole day. Take those whole days and you have a month. It doesn't have to end until your ego-thinking mind comes back in and you choose that again. When you choose fear over love. And it's a constant challenge, obviously. We're all faced with having an ego-thinking mind that's going to try to pull you back just when you think you're out, pull you right back in again. Right? And we've been playing with this for over and over and over, lifetime upon lifetime. Not much different than what we just talked about for the last 2.5 years. Same thing. Okay, so that being said, should we get into the introduction, or should we do the clarification for terms first? Anybody?
Well, there's an introduction before the clarification of terms also.
Right? Yeah, right at the beginning of the manual for teachers now, right? Yeah, we're not going to get into the introduction for the course at the very, very beginning. I'm thinking now we're going to get into the manual for teachers because you guys have already had a tremendous amount of experience and understanding laid down. So if we get into the last section of this book, which is the manual for teachers.
Well, as a matter of fact, there happen to be 5 paragraphs in that introduction, and there happen to be 5 people here in the room. So
there
if
you
we
go.
all read a paragraph, we get through the introduction.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
You want to start us off?
Sure. Manual for Teachers, Introduction, page 1. The role of teaching and learning is actually reversed in the thinking of the world. The reversal is characteristic. It seems as if the teacher and the learner are separated, the teacher giving something to the learner rather than to himself. Further, the act of teaching is regarded as a special activity in which one engages only a relatively small proportion of one's time. The Course, on the other hand, emphasizes that to teach is to learn, so that teacher and learner are the same, and also emphasizes that teaching is a constant process. It goes on every moment of the day, and continues into sleeping thoughts as well.
Okay, so, is that all clear to everyone, or should we, you think we should look at that at all?
The teacher and the learner are the same. You're the teacher and the learner. Or we are all, each of us, the teacher and the learner. We're teaching ourselves.
Remember the Bible talking about? Okay. Now what we're talking about here is the moment, a moment within eternity. The Bible says, as you believe, so shall it be. Right? So the Course in Miracles is basically saying here, you cannot separate yourself from this moment. And as you're teaching, you are teaching yourself. In other words, what you're believing, what you believe you're putting out, right? Aren't you putting this out to someone else? When you're interacting with someone or reacting to someone, aren't you demonstrating what you believe? Mm-hmm. And through your demonstration, you're reinforcing what you believe and validating it for yourself. Isn't that what the Course just said?
Right. Mm-hmm. It also emphasizes that teaching is a constant process.
Never ending.
Right.
You can't separate yourself out of it. It's forever.
Right. For us, serious students in this room, it should be 24 hours a day. Every moment of every day, everything that we say, everything that we do should be, is that teaching moment.
Yes.
It's that learning moment.
Yes.
It shouldn't be like, oh, okay, I got a class now, it lasts for an hour, and then I'm doing live my life, and then, oh, tomorrow I have another class for an hour. No. That's all. That's out.
It's a constant vigilance.
Every moment of every day, right?
Every moment. Absolutely. So yeah, see, so clear. We just got that down. Mick, you want to jump into the next one?
Okay. To teach is to demonstrate. There are only two thought systems, and you demonstrate that you believe one or the other is true all the time. From your demonstration, others learn, and so do you. The question is not whether you will teach, for in that there is no choice. The purpose of the Course might be said to provide you with a means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn. You cannot give to someone else, but only to yourself, and this you learn through teaching. Teaching is but a call to witnesses to attest to what you believe. It is a method of conversion. This is not done by words alone. Any situation must be to you a chance to teach others what you are and what they are to you. No more than that, but also never less.
Pretty self-explanatory, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, love or fear? Love is the reality that is. What's real? Fear, false evidence appearing real, i.e. a human perception. Perception. Doesn't matter, good perception or bad perception, a perception. Unreal. Every given moment of every given day, you have to demonstrate whether you believe this is real or unreal. You're guilty or innocent. That's it. You cannot escape, but expressing this. And you express it. If I tell Johnny, be careful walking across the street, and I'm fearful in that moment for Johnny, I'm in a fear-based mind. I'm looking through the filter of perceptual mind, through the ego, and I'm teaching this to Johnny. I'm teaching him to be fearful in the world. Okay, that's good human, but it's not teaching him to be awake, spiritually speaking. If he was spiritually connected to God in that moment, what's he got to be afraid of? Now, if I understand that God is ever present and God is there to protect, and Johnny is going to be part of this umbrella of protection, I don't have to worry about Johnny in the slightest.
But God's not there to protect necessarily, is he?
Well, God is there to protect in every given moment if
We don't know if something's good or bad. You know, if somebody gets hit by a car, not necessarily a bad thing.
it's not necessarily a bad thing. And so there's a perfection in the moment. Do you have to worry about it?
No.
No. So if I teach Johnny to be worried about it, I'm teaching him to be fearful. Am I not? I'm demonstrating to him my belief in form.
I guess I'm questioning whether God is there to protect. We're making an assumption, and I don't know if that's the proper definition.
Well, when I say God's there to protect, God is there to protect the real truth of the moment, not necessarily to keep the form in place.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Now let's get beyond form. That's the whole key.
I don't think that's what this paragraph says. I think what this paragraph is saying is that it's talking about teaching and how you teach.
Right?
And we have to throw out the window the old model of a teacher like you learned in elementary school where
Right.
there's a classroom and there's a teacher and the teacher's teaching. That's not how we teach in this kind of thing. We teach by living it.
Yes?
When you live it,
Lead by example.
Right.
yeah, you're living it, you're showing it, you're teaching it.
Right.
It's not through your words, it's through your
Action.
actions.
Sure, absolutely
You
right.
live it. You live it, and that's how you teach.
And you're teaching and you're demonstrating in that moment your beliefs. And if you have an attachment to
Exactly.
form, you're going
Right.
to teach that.
And there's two ways, you're going to be teaching one or the other.
Always.
Always. You're going to be
demonstrate.
teaching one or the other.
Yes.
Right, that's what
And-
that paragraph says.
And you are validating to yourself your own beliefs. If I have a fearful mind,
Right.
I'm teaching someone to be afraid. And by teaching them to be afraid, I am reinforcing the belief within myself. This is my belief. So I'm teaching myself.
Yep.
And this is what it's about, through experience.
And others at the same time.
And others at the same time. You
Right.
can't separate.
Right.
Absolutely. You want to jump into 3?
The curriculum you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are and what you believe the relationship of others is to you. In the formal teaching situation, these questions may be totally unrelated to what you think you are teaching, yet it is impossible not to use the component of any situation on behalf of what you really teach, and therefore really learn. To this, the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant. It may coincide with it, or it may not. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching what reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. This does not mean that the self you are trying to protect is real, but it does mean that the self that you think is real is what you teach.
Absolutely. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty about, every given moment is a reflection. Your interaction is a reflection of your core beliefs.
And the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant.
It is, yeah.
It's not, that's not what it's about.
Exactly, it's like Bruce says, it's not what you say, it's what you really believe.
Feel deep down inside, yeah.
Which is why Christ said to his followers at one point, your lips are with me, but your hearts are far from me.
Right.
You give me lip service,
That's what
I
he
hear your
said.
words, but your actions and your demeanor is not reflecting the words you're spewing. And, we're all guilty of this on occasion. We say certain things, but in our heart we mean something different. This is why our world around us is such a great opportunity for us to learn, because we get to experience our thoughts. We get to experience our beliefs. We get to play them out. We get to play them out every day, every moment. How beautiful.
Sentence 8 is significant too. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. That is, every time I assert I live in the awakened state, every time I do that, it strengthens my, like at first, well, maybe it's the right path, and then wait, that is the right path, and the more you do it, the more certain you become that it's the right path. So it eliminates that self-doubt.
Yes. Yep. And so we get to repeat. We repeat until we don't have the doubt there. The doubt then being removed, we're not going to have to replay that. The universe is not going to waste time in replaying some needless experience for you. You're only going to have an experience that is necessary for you until it's no longer necessary. And it gets reinforced through practice and more repetition.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
What a beautiful system God created. I take my hat off to God every time I see it. You want to jump on 4, Gary?
This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Herein is the purpose of the world. What else then would its curriculum be? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death, God sends his teachers. And as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete.
Wow.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah. So here I'm sitting in a room full of God's teachers that are going to impact this world.
Yeah, pretty stark. The world teaches despair and death. That's what the world, that's its
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yes.
That's its curriculum. So, you know,
Yeah. Choose
Choose,
one.
right?
Yeah, I
Choose
mean, if
one.
that's your
That's right.
world, if that's where
Right.
you wish to reside.
oh, that is your world.
Well, it is for
Unless
most
you make
part.
this choice.
Yes.
That is your world. There's not 10 choices, there's 2 choices.
No, exactly.
Right.
And that's why Jesus talked about this is an all or nothing deal. Either you forsake all of that for this, or that holds the value and that's what's going to keep your focus. And you're going to keep it alive. I mean, there's some things that seem to have eye appeal in this world. You know, we seem to place value on certain things in the world, a car, a home, or position, or money, or whatever it is, and it tends to draw us, and we want it. But by going there, you lose the other. You lose this. Anyway, let's look at 5. Except for God's teachers, there would be little hope of salvation, for the world of sin would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive, for they must teach deception. And what else is hell? This is a manual for teachers of God. They are not perfect, or they would not be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here. And so they teach perfection over and over in many ways until they have learned it. And then they are seen no more. Although their thoughts remain a source of strength and truth forever. Who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer these questions.
Holy smokes. What an
Wow.
awesome paragraph.
Isn't it?
That
Big
is
one.
an awesome paragraph. Wow. So the stakes are pretty high.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
But the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is pretty nice too.
Stakes are high, but you can't lose either. So, I mean, we have eternity, and so there doesn't have to be a lot of pressure or fear.
well, yeah. No, it should never. No one should ever move from fear. This is one of the things that I looked at in terms of the Christian religion I was brought up in and exposed to is they have used fear as a motivator. The Course in Miracles is using love as a motivator.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. It's teaching to interact on a whole nother level It's teaching to forgo your attachment to fear. That's the only thing you're really sacrificing. To accept this, you're sacrificing your fears. You're saying, okay, I'll let all my fears go. In reality, the things of the world, nothing here is ever a problem. Money is not a problem. Things are not a problem. Relationships are not a problem. But the ego-thinking mind can make anything a problem. And does make almost everything a problem. Because you've taken a holy situation and turned it into a special situation. If it's holy, nothing wrong with it. This is why when we look at the Bible, and Paul said, of its own self all things are pure. They become impure when we eat with an impure mind. Not the thing. What does the thing mean? If it's based upon false evidence appearing real, I've lost that moment. I've moved it from holy to special. In terms of relationships, you're having a relationship with an individual, that's a holy encounter until you make it a special relationship. You've lost it. You've lost the significance of that moment. You're out of sync with the moment. You're in a perceived reality. So basically everything that we just talked about, everything we heard here, is moving from the perceived reality back to what is real. That's all. What's going to change in your world? The details might not change at all as far as what you see in the outward, the material world outside of you. It might not even change. And
that's how you perceive. Well, but you perceive it differently. I don't want to say perceive it. I mean,
experience it. Let's put it that way.
That's a better word.
And I like experience better than perceive, because perceived means I've taken that experience and putting a value on the moment. As to experiencing, I'm with it. Now, experiencing is timeless. God is timeless. God is that which never changes. Love will never change. If I'm part of this moment experientially speaking, if I am awake to this moment, if I'm experiencing the miracle, as the Course would say, in that moment it's timeless. You want to lose that timelessness. Rumi talked about this. Remember Rumi talking about the third eye? The eye goes blind when it only wants to see why. I'm with the moment. The moment now, I'm experiencing the moment. Now I want to see why. Now I got to get into my perceptual mind, don't I? I just moved from one state to another. I moved from being timeless in this moment like a kid playing. In the moment, they're lost in space. It's like, what time is it? They're in that moment. Time is irrelevant to them. But all of a sudden, you teach them to be focused on time as a good human, and now they're getting conditioned to start seeing things and analyzing things from that vantage point. Different world.
The phrase that was kind of shocking to me is in the middle. It leads up to this is a manual for teachers. They're not perfect, or they wouldn't be here. It's their mission to become perfect. They teach it over and over in many ways till they've learned it, and then they are seen no more. What happens to them? Once they become perfect, they disappear?
Well,
Well, what's that about?
well, the way in which I would take that, I would say that they've moved from an ego-based personality to their true spiritual nature. Now, the ego-based personality is not going to be seen. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're out of here. In terms of the material world, they may still